like to say greetings and welcome and thank you to Don Diamond and Central Public School for opening their doors for us this evening, and to Lee Westlake, who will be the MC for this evening. My name's Kate Thomas. I'm the coordinator for the McBurney Park Neighborhood Association, and we're sponsoring the event this evening because we want to learn about who we'd like to have represent our district and our neighborhood on City Council. I don't see him here, and he may be taking the evening off, but I would like to acknowledge and thank Rob Hutchison for all his hard work as our Kingstown representative for all these years. Rob has worked tirelessly, listened carefully, and stood up for all our thoughts, issues, and concerns over the years. He's stepping aside for a well-deserved rest, and he leaves large shoes to fill. Shoes and an idealism that I'm confident someone at this table will take forward on our behalf. Thanks to Rob for all your years of dedication. I'd also like to acknowledge the land upon which we have the privilege to meet and to gather. Our park and all of this neighborhood sit on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples. Many of us are settlers, come of free will or not, and we share our cemetery park with skeletons from times past. We celebrate and dance on the surface as we create community. The McBurney Park Neighborhood Association came to be in the early 2000s, founded by families who live around the park. The mission was, and still is, for safety, advocacy, education, and fun, working together to make a neighborhood safe to walk, bike, play, and gather. It has grown to include a hugely successful arts festival for all ages and a community sharing gardens for all to share in planting and harvesting and much more. It's a place to gather and engage and work and share. We believe in participation at the local level where decisions by our city council affect us in our daily lives. We're interested in having a voice at City Hall, in finding safe housing for the unhoused, safe, beautiful streets to walk and cycle, a park for kids to splash and play in, and a canopy of trees to shelter us. We're looking for a candidate who listens and hears us. A new friend to me has this on her wall: democracy and citizenship is more than voting. Democracy comes alive when people are engaged together, producing goods, culture, and neighborliness. It's when people have the ability to shape the decisions that most affect them. It's when opportunities to pursue good, honest work abound. Voting matters. Please listen to our friends this evening, ask them challenging questions, and let's step forward with a council that cares and listens to all its citizens. I'm going to turn the table over now to Lee Westlake, our MC. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Kate, and thank you all for coming. It's great to see you out tonight. I am your moderator, Lee Westlake, a longtime member of the Neighborhood Association. Let me start by introducing the candidates. From left to right, we have Keith Bilo. Yes. We have Alexandria Liu. And we have Greg Ridge. Yeah. And I'd like to say, regardless of the outcome on October 24th, thank you for doing this. You know, we all sit and gripe and groan about how we'd like to see things change in the city, but very few of us step up, and these three people have. So thank you and congratulations about that. Yeah. All right, so housekeeping. Please mute your phones. The washrooms are out here to my right. Echo Perry Cumberland has organized childcare in the room next to us. If you need that, thank you, Echo. We have Soundworks here, Rob, who is making sure that we can be heard. David Yateman is here from Kojako TV to film the event. The link will be put up tomorrow for you to share with those who could not make it. And we have Rob from Global TV as well. Format explanation. The agenda is on your handout. It will start with opening comments, followed by answers to 3 prepared questions, and then we'll turn it over to you in the audience for questions. You may ask questions by putting your hand up for a mic, or if you don't want to do that, we have Kate and Ray will have clipboards, and you can write it down and I will read it for you if you're uncomfortable saying it loud. There's Ray at the back, right there. Yeah, and Kate, you met. Our timer tonight is David McDonald right here, yellow card at 30 seconds, red at stop talking. So that's for you 3. And a final word about question etiquette. For fairness, any question that is asked you will all have an opportunity to answer it, okay? I will rotate around the answers in terms of who can start first in an effort to be as fair as possible. And then to the audience, please be direct in your questions. No speeches, please. You'll have kind of 30 seconds to get to it, or I'll kind of step in and ask you to get to your question. Okay, we're here to hear these people. On that note, let's start with the opening comments. You have 3 minutes, and we'll go Keith, Alexandria, then Greg. Thanks, everybody. Let's have a great meeting.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. This is our first time, all of us 3 together, to do this, so it's quite nice to see all this. I tell you some about me. I am a Kingston guy all my life. I've lived in this neighborhood a long time. The neighborhood, I played in the square over here. I lived on Pine Street, lived on Bay Street, and I'm an independent guy working independently most of my life. So I now semi-retired, so I got lots of time, and I do events for mostly the LGBT community, but I do events around town, and I'm happy to run that because there's a lot to be done, and we're going to have half the council this time be all new faces. I want to make sure that the park and the surrounding neighborhood is taken care of and grows healthy, and not on some whims of some people who'd like to just build whatever the hell they want, and I'm not up for that. So I want us to make sure we have good housing, good safety in the neighborhood, and I'm looking forward to working with any of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Keith. And Alexandria Liu.
Hi, it's so nice to see all of you here, and it's nice to see some friendly faces. I'm Alexandria Liu. I live over on Cowdy Street, so I am right in the neighborhood. I'm also a student and a mother, so I understand a lot of the overlapping issues that families face in our area. I volunteer with our local tenants union, so I help organize tenants that maybe live in very unsafe situations. Maybe they have pests or stuff like that. And I also work to help serve people that are living deep in the streets or deep in the woods. We help clothe them, we help feed them. We do all of this with literally the money out of our very own pockets, and we knock on doors and we ask them for money. And it's hard. It's hard to support the community in the way that we do when we don't have the funding for it. And it would be nice to be in a position where we have real power to make real change, because currently I'm a poor person, and our community, our little our union is also other poor and working people. And it feels as though currently poor people are supporting poor people, and the people that have the power to make changes aren't doing that. And that's where I come in. That's what I want to do. I want to lift up people at the very bottom, because a rising tide does lift all boats. Everybody will be better if we lift the people that are struggling the most. There's so many cracks that people are falling into. I understand that because I'm in them myself sometimes. And nobody's doing anything to help pull us out of them. That's what's important, okay? Like, I don't have all of the political experience that maybe some of my who I'm running against have. I can't think of the word. You know what word I need. I might not have the same experience, but I care way more. That's what I was going to say, but I'm sure we all care. But I'm in there, and when this election is over, I'm still going to be in there, whether I win or not. And it's really nice to see some new faces out here, too. But I'm Alexandria Liu, and I'm running for your district because I actually care. And that's
All
it.
right, thank you, Alexandria. And lastly, Greg Ridge, 3 minutes.
Hi. I'm normally very loud, so I'm cautious of the microphone. I want to start by thanking the organizers. My name is Gregory Ridge. I'm running to be the city councilor here in Kingstown, much like my fellow candidates. We'll get the word right eventually.
Figure it out.
So I grew up on Main Street. I've lived in this district and in this neighborhood for over 25 years. I spent some time outside of it, but it was only a couple of years. I live with my wife and my son, Gary, who's just a little sweet guy, on Russell Street, and we've been living there for 4 years now. My background, so I have an education in accounting, and I'm currently doing my master's in public administration for policy studies, part-time. And I first got involved with community work. I did some community work so I was the chief financial officer for the NDP Riding Association. And so we would do community outreach there. And then from that, in 2018, I became a constituency assistant, and then later a legislative assistant as well for Ian Arthur when he was the member of Provincial Parliament. And working there and doing constituency work or looking at legislation and seeing the gaps in the system, like what you're talking about, Alexandria, and trying to help people who are in acute need was really the turning point for me with regards to what I wanted to do with my time and how I could help the community. So I started a free low income tax clinic that we ran through the office. We would take some accounting students from St. Lawrence, we'd teach them how to do taxes, and then we did well over 800 taxes. We brought $2 million plus back into the community for those who are most in need. So to qualify, you would have to have a family income of less than it's like $49,000. So the need was so overwhelming that it eventually took over a lot of the other aspects of my job. But Ian was very supportive because we were able to prove through metrics just how valuable that time was spent doing that. So anyways, I just want to go over quickly my 4 priorities, which are to increase the stock of affordable housing in the city, increase funding for social services and supportive housing, to look at environmental policies and see how we can strengthen them, and that includes walkability and canopy coverage, and also look at ways that we can help artists and performing artists, because they've really been struggling since the pandemic, and that's something that I'm really passionate about. So that's me. Dave's going to give me the red card in a second, so thank you very much. There it is. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. All right, so that's the opening comments. We're on to number 4 on the agenda, which is answers to the prepared questions, which you see on your little flyer here. So 2 minutes. It's a very short time for these questions, I know. Question 1, we would like to hear you talk about housing in our neighborhood, specifically homelessness, Airbnb, students, and/or affordability. We will start this one off with Alexandria.
That's a lot to cover in just 2 minutes, so I want to just touch on housing as a whole. I am running with members from the tenants union. Housing is literally one of our top priorities. Like, I can't even think of what would be above it. But in terms of housing, we don't want to continue to support people that are homeless. We want to end homelessness. We want everybody to be sheltered. We want to increase publicly owned housing. Everybody deserves to be in a home, and the people shouldn't be profiting from somebody needing somewhere to live. That money can come back into the city, and it can be continuously reinvested back into the city, into housing, into programs, into better jobs, into a cleaner city. Like, it improves everything. Having unstable housing causes so many issues throughout the whole community, and it causes pain within the person that's experiencing it. So when you solve the housing crisis, and when you introduce housing that is geared to income, that is near resources that are needed, that has supportive people in it if it's supportive housing. Like, you need a variety of housing. You need senior housing as well. You need housing for mothers that are currently stuck in horrible relationships because they can't go anywhere else with their kids. It's not just people on the streets that need help. There are people in homes that also need help. So the housing issue is huge. And we need more publicly owned housing. I want to see the city own more housing. I want the city to be making money off of housing, not landlords that are going to go on vacation. I want the city to build housing and reinvest the money. That's what we need.
And Greg.
Thank you. So, Alexandria, you made my answer a lot shorter, which I appreciate. No, so specifically around the piece of the municipally owned and operated, or at an arm's length corporation, in the case of how it would actually operate, housing, the city does need to step up, and they need to do more with regards to that. Their current housing and homelessness strategy is very dependent upon private development. I think we're past the point now where if the market were to have solved this problem, it would have solved it by now. It's not doing that. So we need direct intervention from the city with regards to that, 100%. They've been significantly better on their last council than they have been in the last 3 before that. And so you can see the administration is starting to turn in the right direction. But what we need councillors who will push the city, push the mayor and the administration to move the dial more in that direction, and make sure that that is an absolute strategic priority, because that is what it is. Housing is one of the largest social determinants of health. We are seeing the economic effects of this in our community. We have a crisis of people who are homeless. The social housing registry wait list was, when I was a CA anyways, it was 8 to 10 years long. I'm not sure what the length is now. It may be 7 years, maybe even longer than 10 years, depending on your situation. So that's my thoughts on housing. How it can be done? It doesn't necessarily need to be long, big, tall condo buildings that are adjacent to the downtown core. That can be part of it if it's done responsibly, but we do need to look at densification strategies, and we also need to look at the Housing and Homelessness Report has a number of recommendations that just need to be implemented, and they need to be implemented now. Thank you very much.
And finally, Keith.
Thank you. We're going to ignore the rest of the question on here, but just do homeless. But some of the things that can help solve this, there's a lot of structures here in town that are being used as Airbnbs. And there's got to be some stuff done about that, because they should actually be rentals. And we've got to move away from that. And we've got to find ways to allow people who have structures already that can put apartments or granny houses or whatever you want to call them, that in their own units. We have space, lots of places that do that. It struck me the other day when I was out campaigning. There's one building who had a $200 rebate for or gift to somebody who brought a new tenant to them. Also, I noticed Carico is now advertising 2-bedroom apartments. So it's not only it's the cost of what it is to house these people, and that house anyone. So the cost has got to come down, and the cost has got to be borne somewhere, whether it's geared to income or there's a subsidy comes to them so that they can live in some of these units. And some people wouldn't realize this, but there's buildings on the east side of the city that are empty because they're bought by speculators. They're not up for rent. They're up to be empty and waiting to speculate. And we've got to tax them so they stop that and make sure that those things are used to actually house people, not to sit there and wait till the price goes up. That's, and I do agree that we need more social housing. Thank you.
Thank you all. Question 2. Providence Manor will likely close before the next city election in 2026. Last month, City Council voted to support, in principle and financially, further study of the feasibility of repurposing the building. How, as a councillor, would you engage in this vitally important initiative? And we'll start with Greg.
Oh, okay. So I want to start by thanking Jamie Swift, and I don't know if I see him here, but he's been engaging with me with regards to the possibility of this development, putting the bug in my ear, as it were. Any development that's like this is a very exciting opportunity, and it's something that needs to be taken very seriously, and it also needs to be considered, the effect of the neighborhood needs to be considered. That being said, based on what I've heard and what I've seen, I'm generally in support of it because of it contributing to the affordable housing stock and helping an enormous amount of people. But whenever we have developments like this, it behooves whoever the representative is to try to get engaged on the ground floor and be part of that conversation. And what they can do is talk to community members, gauge their interests, what their concerns are. But community outreach is very important, and it has to be done by the organizations that are putting forward these proposals as well. And proper community engagement. We've seen examples in the past where the project in and of itself has been very good, but the consultation for the community has been poor. And so that builds in the community a sense of resentment, at least from some members, not all. Every community has multivariate views. But those are important things. So for a councillor to get in, to listen, communicate, thank you, and to also make clear their support or not is another thing, to be clear about where they are and where they stand on this. Like, I am in support of this project. There you go. Do I have concerns about it in some ways? Certainly. Will those concerns be ironed out with proper consultation with the community? Probably, which is what we need to aim for. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. And Keith.
Thank you. I've toured Providence Care a number of times. I know what it looks like. I know that it is, they're going to they're building at the Mother House for a new structure. And what's there now can be used. And what I'm concerned is that the mix of people that will be in there will fit the neighborhood. My only real concern is I don't want the same. There's a building on Bagot Street, that was geared for seniors, which is not a senior home at all anymore. And that concerns me, that if that's what we're doing, if what they're proposing, I want them to do that, not have it slide off into something else. I want a good mix of people that live, like the people who live in the neighborhood and take advantage of the neighborhood. It is part of the neighborhood, and I want to make sure that they do consult with people around here and gear it to them. I don't know if you've ever been in there, but the chapel in there is the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful in the city. I know it's designated historical, but no one ever sees it. But I want them to bring that all into what part of the community that we never ever see.
Thank you, Keith. And lastly, Alexandria.
So I think Providence Manor would be a great place for, wait for it, housing. It has already, literally, what else could you put there? And I think that a good stepping stone to use with buildings that are becoming empty like this is to, it's not just this one initiative that I would support. Whenever we have a building that is no longer going to be what it currently is, it shouldn't become some empty rundown building. We have enough of those in our area. All of the buildings need to be repurposed into something nice and meaningful. Everybody out here has asked me for community centers, for more housing, for more things for their families to enjoy, and those are the kinds of things I would like to see. So whether the Manor itself becomes a community center or housing, those are the directions that we need to take, and I would like all of the other buildings in our area to also be turned into something nice, because we have a nice, meaningful part of the city, and it seems to be getting forgotten. And that's what I would like to see done with those projects.
Thank you, Alexandria. I think it's interesting to point out about what you said, Kingstown is an interesting district in terms of our boundaries, and our former councillor would say that anything that happens in the city often happens twice in Kingstown, because we are Princess Street, we're Ontario Street, we are Division, and we go north as far as Elliott or John Counter. Yeah, so it's a really interesting district. Question number 3. During the capital condo negotiations, the developer agreed to pay $60,000 to study ways to improve Queen Street. What are your thoughts on how this vital downtown artery can be improved? And I think we're back to starting with you.
Me, thanks.
Yeah.
That $60,000 for a study, I don't know. That seems to be small, because it's just to do something with the street that is the worst paved street in Ontario. It really is. It's got voted that this year. So until they finish the construction of the project across the street here, the buildings at the bottom of Princess Street or Queen Street, I don't think there's going to be much other development there. I don't know where we could do some. Because there's going to have to be some sort of commercial element in here. But they have the lot that's directly up from Bagot, that is empty behind that. That's probably going to be some sort of commercial, but I would expect that they would put some sort of housing above that. But I'm willing to see what they propose. But if they propose anything that is street level, I want something above it to contain some sort of housing.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Alexandria and then Greg, of course.
So to me, it didn't really make sense to study Queen Street. You already know that it needs to be paved, and it also felt a little bit insulting for an expensive condo to come in here, and they're going to make how much money off of putting how many of us onto the streets and increasing our rent out of our homes, and they say, but you know what? We'll give you $60,000 to study something, and whatever answer you get to that study, you can fund it yourself. It's almost insulting, honestly, and I don't appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Alexander, you stole my joke about I don't think we need to study for the roads. The condition of the roads, absolutely awful. Voted 5 years in a row on CAA's list for one of the worst roads in Canada. So with that very small amount of money, there would have to be a determination as to what it is that we want to study with regards to that. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Personally, myself, I would like to see a study that would be done on accessibility, because I don't know if anybody knows anybody who has disabilities, or if they're disabled themselves, or getting around in the downtown area can be incredibly difficult. Incredibly difficult. Like, if you have to plan your whole life around this, I have a friend whose child has a disability, and this was when it really became apparent to me. You have to plan your whole goddamn life around it. And so if there's one thing that we can do to improve the quality of life for people in terms of accessibility, and for the minimal amount of money, it's a pittance, it's a joke for the study, I would look at accessibility and walkability and see what we can do to improve Queen Street. Straight up. Thanks.
Okay, thank you to you three for those answers. Fantastic. We're moving on to your portion of the evening, so questions from the audience. A reminder that Rob is here with the portable mic. A reminder that Ray and Kate can be flagged down if you want to write your question. Anybody? There's one. Here's two.
Simple question. For everyone, will you commit to eliminating homelessness in our city by putting all the homeless and everyone on the housing registry into publicly owned rent-geared-to communities as your first order of business in council?
Thank you for the question. I think we're at Alexandria first.
Yes. 100%. That's why I'm running.
Greg?
I'm committing to it. The problem is that there aren't enough units. And so that's the issue. So that's why my strategic priority, Ivan, is making sure that the city ponies up, or does up, I forget the expression, and starts to really accelerate on building those units. But yes, ideally, I would love for that to happen, and it is a priority for me. Everybody has inherent dignity. Everybody deserves housing. Everybody, like, that's it, period. Thanks.
Everyone needs a place to lay their head at night. When I see people on the street, people talk to me about why they're there, and they're saying, like, you know, whether they have some mental issue or some drug issue, and I say, you cannot solve those without having them someplace to lay their head. They must have somewhere place to lay their head, so before you can solve those problems. So that, yes, that it is a priority for me because everyone deserves to be there, and I know a number of people like that. So I want everyone in this town to have somewhere to lay their head.
Kingston is a university city. Queen's campus alone, the campus community is about 4 times bigger than the town I grew up in. How do you see the role of our educational institutions in housing in the city?
Thank you for the question. Greg, you can start.
So there's a very obvious effect that the universities, that Queen's University and St. Lawrence College are having with regards to our housing supply. Part of the issue there is that that rental housing is not being built fast enough with regards to availability of units. And so we're seeing an effect that is squeezing people out of rental units. If you're a young person who's outside of school, if you have a young family, whatever your circumstance, it tends to have an effect there. So there needs to be there needs to be a conversation with those organizations with regards to what they're doing to look at the housing supply, specifically around building more residence buildings would be ideal, specifically. But economically, it has a large effect on the city as well. So we need to look at those, and it also contributes to the culture of the city significantly. So to sum it up, great economic contributor, cultural contributor, but there needs to be serious conversation about the housing effect. Thanks, Dave.
And finally, Keith.
Finally?
Oh, it's okay. You go in the middle.
No. Anyway, so yeah, Queens is a huge effect on the neighborhoods, and this neighborhood in particular. When I lived on Alfred Street, I had students all around me. But Greg is right. We have to talk to Queens here and make sure that they know what they want and what they're willing to contribute. But not only Queens, St. Lawrence College, there's a pile of students living in the downtown area that are St. Lawrence College students. It's not just Queens. So we have to deal with both of them on an individual basis. Yes.
And then me.
Oops.
And
Wait,
Rob.
What? She hasn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alexandria.
So I go to St. Lawrence College, and actually there's a few students at my school that are currently homeless. They immigrated here to go to school, and now they can't find housing. So yeah, students are facing housing issues, and then so are the people that already live here and are going to live here full time. I think it's really irresponsible of the schools to continue to accept such large amounts of students when they know that it's just going to contribute to the housing crisis. So there needs to be a limit on how much they're increasing it and how many students they're accepting. Like, they need to factor that in to how many students can even fit into this city. And at the same time, these schools are making how much money off the students, but then they leave the housing crisis for us to handle. That's not fair. The schools have so much money. They are getting so much money from these students that are homeless. So the least the schools could do is provide housing for these people.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Okay, so we have some more questions. Right there, thanks.
Hi. There's a building close to Rideau Street, and it's an old beer store. And it's been empty for I don't know how long, but I'd like to know why, and is it empty?
Okay, so the old beer store, I think many of us know where that is. Well, I do. Keith.
You want to know what I want to do with that building? Oh, well, I mean, it's one of the brown spots in this town, and brown spots need to be, that the city controls need to be made into housing. And I'm not talking high residential housing. I'm talking something, even if the city works with smaller developers, we work with large ones, and why we don't work with small ones and build smaller units that don't take the sky space, and don't take as much. But I think the city should be working more with smaller builders doing smaller buildings.
I'm not sure what it would be turned into, like what would be good as long term, but it is sad to me that we have so many of these empty buildings, and then you walk around and there's so many resources missing from our area. Like, it's not like we don't have the space to put it, we just don't have the people that want to do it, that care enough to do it. And that's what I want to do. Like, these empty homes should be full of people and should be full of resources. Like, if you don't have food, one of those places should be full. Like, if the food bank doesn't have enough space to serve people, why are we not using these places to expand food bank access? Like, it's such an easy solution, and these people on city council just aren't doing it. And it's heartbreaking, honestly.
So I have heard a lot about this building while canvassing. It's very obvious. It's in a really interesting location, so there are a number of things that can be done with this building. I've heard recommendations like a community center, a food bank, like module or outreach station. I've heard of those, and also like an expansion of street health was another one that I heard. That was a recommendation that I actually thought was quite interesting. So if the immediate cost for developing housing on that space is too much, or if there's difficulties there, I think that there's a very solid argument that can be made for conversion with regards to outreach for social services or supportive housing, like a base, like home base. Or something cultural as well, like an art space. I think that the acute need is obviously around the social services and needs, so that's where I would land my head at. Thank you.
Sorry. I have a two-tone question. The first one is my understanding from a couple of people is that some of the other smaller cities, like Brockville, are giving tickets to their homeless people to come to Kingston. And secondly, instead of going twice, my question is, what will you do? And one of the ideas is keep going to council, and they don't seem to want to hear from us as people that are with housing, like Kingston, Frontenac Housing or wherever, how to improve things. And I'm wondering if you, as a new counselor or as counselors, would be willing to put forth that maybe you should hear from people that need housing or are on housing, who know where the problems stand or what the unhoused people's needs actually are, as focus groups perhaps, that can help to find out what the actual needs are, because not everybody that's unhoused wants an actual apartment. They may have needs that they need something smaller, for instance, a tiny home, because living in an apartment with all sorts of other people around them may not be what their mental health needs are. So perhaps talking to people that actually know what their needs are may be more helpful than a bunch of people sitting around a desk deciding what those needs are. Quite often, my understanding is that if you have an organization, and nothing against Kingston Frontenac Housing, because they're just the one identity, there used to be more than one, they don't always know what's best for their clientele.
Okay, thank you. So that's a two-layered question. So the tickets from Brockville, and
Are they going to, are council going to do anything about that to try and help
okay,
us not continue to get more and more unhoused?
okay, thank you. We are starting where? I've lost track. That is my only job.
What's that?
Did I start last time?
I think it's Keith. Is it
Oh,
Keith?
there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's Keith.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I've heard the same stuff from coming from Brockville and from Peterborough. In fact, I know one instance from this city. There is a woman who has been has been given a ticket back to Brockville because she has family there more than once, and she's continued to return. That sometimes that giving the ticket to them to go home doesn't work. That somebody has worked with them to find them, to get them back there, but they've come back again. So yes, I would talk to the other places, like no, and you can't do that. But an advisory committee is always a good idea, always. I worked with the MS Society for a long time. I have a 30-year pin with them and working with people with disabilities. And yes, an advisory committee is always good to have. Your turn.
So I actually don't know anything about the Brockville tickets, so I just don't want to comment on it. But I do have my email on here, so you can reach out to me and I'll look into it, and then we can talk about it. But in regards to the other part of the question, which was
Advisory committee.
the advisory committee, right? Okay, so I'm so glad that you brought that up, actually, because we volunteer at the Hub, and we volunteer in other parts of the city, and we do that. We talk to the people. We talk to them about what their needs are, what kind of housing they want to see. That's why I'm not just we just need housing. We need supportive housing. There's transitional housing. There's housing for people that have kids. It's not like you can't just put all of these people into one big complex and be like, there we go, problem solved, because that's not how you solve the problem. So I love that you brought that up, because yes, that's what I want to do. Is I don't want to bring my good ideas for our good city. I want to bring your voices to the table. I don't have all the ideas in my head. I'm 25 years old, and your voices are what I want to bring to the table. I want you guys to call me. My phone number's on there. Tell me what you care about, and that's what I want to do.
So I've been hearing anecdotal stories about the tickets for a long time. I've never, ever since I first heard it, which I believe was about 4 years ago, I haven't seen any evidence of it, but I've heard it a lot. So I can't say with veracity about that, but I'm happy to talk about that. Yes. So there are multiple types of housing. There are different types of supports that are needed for people. There is no one-size-fit-all solution, which is why we need to be very intelligent about the development of our housing. I want to talk about the condition of social housing. So I canvassed 381 Bagot Street 2 days ago. And so I was knocking on doors. I was putting up literature. During that time, I witnessed 2 people shooting up in the stairwell, and somebody defecated in the hall in front of the elevators on the 5th floor. So there needs to be more supports in terms of what exists for our current social housing and the way that we address that, because obviously what's happening right now is not acceptable. It needs to change. It needs to improve. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's one here, and then Rob at the back. Next.
Somewhat more pragmatic approach. Given how funding and laws govern, most of the laws that govern taxation and development are either provincial or federal. Certainly a lot of the laws that govern the activities that we either do or don't want aren't in the realm of City Council. And the taxation abilities of City Council are extremely limited. I'm all for repurposing buildings, and I'm all for these ideas, but have you really any idea how we can practically fund these ideas? Particularly as, correct me if I'm wrong, under the current format, when developers do build any kind of housing, a certain proportion of the housing is supposed to be geared to income, but they can pay a levy that they just build into the price, which goes to the city and then is used in general funds. It is not sidetracked for housing. So what position would any of you take in regards to changing this or attacking or dealing, depending how aggressive you want to be? The fundamental thing that these ideas are all lovely, they've all been downloaded onto our shoulders, and we don't have any effective way that I can see of paying for any of it.
So actually the city, I know it sucks to hear, but the city does have money for these things, and we give it to people like the guy that's giving us $60,000 to study Queen Street. We give it to these people because we think, oh, they're gonna solve the housing crisis. So let's give them millions, literally millions of dollars that is supposed to be for housing to lift people out of poverty. We give it to these people. They give us unaffordable apartments. Our rents get higher, and then we're told, oh, the city doesn't have any money to house you. Because we just gave it to these people that don't even need it. The city has so much money, and we're not giving it to the people that need it. For example, the ICH, used to be owned by the city. Now it's owned by a landlord, and we pay him to have people at the ICH. And does that sound like it even makes sense? So the city does have money for these things, and we're just giving it away to people that aren't even struggling, don't even need it, aren't residents of this town. So we can definitely fund it.
So my background's in accounting, so I like looking at budgets, sources of revenue, ways that can be addressed. So my answer is nowhere near as exciting as yours, Alexandria. I apologize. Municipalities have received the short end of the stick for a very long time with the downloading of social services. There needs to be an assessment of current financial policies with regards to development, with regards to social services, and the proportion of the budget that's allocated there, and what can be done pragmatically and responsibly to improve those services and in a sustainable way. It's not an exciting answer, I understand. But this with the current levers that municipalities have, especially with our provincial government and its trigger-happy legislation with regards to affecting the way municipalities run, sometimes in the middle of elections, we need to look at ways that the revenues that the city generates themselves can be used in a responsible way to move towards those goals which we are looking at, which includes affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. And
I think, to get back to your original question, I believe you're asking about the money, tracking the money at the very first, that is specifically earmarked at that, and you're asking about tracking it to that. If there's money tracked to anything, as you're saying, and tracked to geared to income, and that's what it's for. If we're taxing something, that's what it's for. Believe me, I will make sure it goes there, because I'm all for making sure what you're taxed on and where it's going to, what it's pledged to, that's where it goes. It doesn't go to some other slush fund, doesn't go anywhere else, but where it was directed to.
Okay, thank you, Keith. And Rob, we have a question in the back. Oh, okay.
Hello. I hope it isn't going to bother everybody, but I'd like to redirect a little bit away from housing. But it's related. One of my greatest concerns as we rush off and start building all kinds of things is the consequence that we have on the environment. And there's a climate crisis happening. And I'm very concerned about my grandchildren and whether they'll have a planet they can live on. And we can build a lot of places and cut down a lot of trees and not serve that purpose to creating a planet that our children and our grandchildren can live on. So I'm concerned about, how much you're willing to also consider that when decisions are being made. And I guess the simplest thing would be to ask, if you were on that council that was voting on the tannery site and cutting down those old growth trees, how would you vote?
Okay, thank you, and we'll start with Greg.
Okay, so thank you for asking that question. My vote would have been no to the tannery development. So there you go. Precisely because of the environmental concerns, especially with the contaminants. With the first part of your question about development and building, and so densification within the city is less environmentally damaging than expanding the boundaries of the city, so building more suburban property, right? Like more housing there. We know that that's the case. We know that that's less sustainable as a practice. So I think that the environmentally responsible way of moving forward, and of course we can do more to determine what would be even better, but is to look at that densification factor with regards to housing and housing development. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
And the tannery, which is a difficult thing, if we're talking about trees, yes, we have to build up, not out, because that destroys more trees. That on the harbor site itself, I want to go back to there's a thing I found out from Philadelphia, of all places. They have an arborist. And what happens on a site like that, they go in, they mark and figure out what trees are there, and they force the developer to plant that same amount somewhere else. So it's not there, but it's somewhere else. So it balances out, and that's what I would do. I didn't like what was proposed at all. So I would look at another proposal, but not that one.
Thank you, Alexandria.
I also worry about the environment for my own kids because they're very little, probably your grandkids' age, right? So when I think about housing, and no, I would have voted no for the tannery. But when I think about housing and the environment, I think that we don't have to sacrifice, like it doesn't have to be a choice, it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like we can build green homes. I've heard people talk about, because this has been another thing that I've heard is like green stuff, right? Green housing. So, you can have green roofs, you can make the new builds like smarter and more environmentally friendly. We can use things like toilets that use less water, like you can build homes that are more friendly to the environment. Like I don't want us to build a bunch of like crappy homes that are going to burn down and ruin the environment, because that's not good for anybody in the long run. We want stuff that's going to benefit everybody. So when it comes to housing, you want green housing. Even if it's a little bit more expensive, it's worth it, like expensive housing or no planet. So count your options.
I too am going to switch gears. Kingston has a dramatic shortage of family doctors. The whole area, in Kingston and around Kingston, there are like 20 to 30,000 people who don't have a family doctor right now. And the city has managed to recruit, I understand, another 10, but I think there's a bunch of them retiring too. So I don't know that the net increase in, the number of patients who are going to get new doctors is, I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make. So my question to you is, if you've thought about it, what ways can the city encourage more doctors to come to town?
I think it's me, but I'm not sure. Right?
We can do rock, paper, scissors for it.
You got it.
It's my turn, okay. All right. Yeah. Actually, this question I like this. We educate a lot of doctors here, and they leave because there's no place for them to go. I would like in this city for us to create another care hub, an urgent care hub at Taylor Kidd and Sir John A. Attached to that, I would like to have family physicians. That because you have to give them somewhere to work out of before they come to work, and I think by getting it out of downtown, and it will serve the east, the west, and the north, and get it off the 401. But we've got land sitting out there on the old Alcan property that you could easily help with, and they get something there that can house doctors and do a hub. Oops. You're mean.
He's on it.
Yes. Thank you, Alexandria.
So I'm not sure how much power municipal has over changing, I don't know, health laws, whatever. I know that people that are doctors that didn't study in Canada can't come to Canada and be doctors. But we have so many doctors in Kingston driving things like cabs and doing other jobs that are not benefiting our health services at all. And if we were able to create maybe like a little public health unit where those people could work or something like that. But I would like to explore all of these options because we have we don't have doctors. There are families that don't have doctors. There are mothers giving birth that don't have doctors that they can regularly see, and that's not right. But we have actual doctors in our city. We don't have them working as doctors, but we have doctors in our city, and that doesn't really make sense. So I would like to explore how we can get the people that are educated to be doctors that are already here to help the people that are here. And from there, we can explore bringing in new doctors, but we have doctors here in Kingston that know what they're doing, and it'd be nice if they could work.
Yeah, so I'm going to speak really fast because I've done a lot of work on this. There was a study that was put forward by the city with funding from City Council a couple of years ago with regards to the family doctor shortage. So I worked for Ian Arthur when he was MPP, and that was his number one priority, was trying to get the catchment area of Kingston and the Islands redesignated as adequately serviced, from adequately serviced to being an area of need based on severe shortage of family doctors. It would, the third phone call at the office every day would be, I don't have a doctor. What the city is doing with regards to its attraction and retention techniques they're bearing fruit now, which is fantastic. Your question about whether those doctors will make a difference, it's still going to be a deficit within 5 years with the amount of retiring physicians. This is largely a provincial issue, but we can do things to make it more accommodating for family doctors to come here, including resources, facilities, I'm going to keep going, Dave, sorry, and funding for retention. So we can talk more about that later. I'd love to. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, I see a question at the back there, Rob.
It's so tempting to come down to the actual neighborhood level, but I wanted to do a little bit of connecting between healthcare and housing. And I'm thinking about seniors, which hasn't been addressed yet. So there's a few, two main issues that I'm thinking about in particular that I'm wondering your approach to publicly funded nursing homes and long-term care homes and seniors residences. So there's a lot of for-profit seniors residences in retirement homes in Kingston, but no publicly funded ones. So what is your stance on expanding that type of housing support? So another Rideau Crest, for example.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. We will start with Alexandria.
I would love to see it expand in long-term housing and senior housing, because you guys work so hard. Like, you worked your whole lives and you built this place, and now it's failing you, and that's not fair. So whether we build like all new housing with like all the resources within it that you need, or we take already existing buildings and repurpose them. But like, I don't just care about housing people on this street. Like, I want like senior housing to exist too. Like, if you're retired and you own your home, and then like your roof breaks and now you're going to be on the verge of homelessness or something just because you don't have all those funds, like that is like, our seniors need more support in all areas, like in housing, in funding, in all of it. So like, even though I'm not like the expert in the resources that you would need, like I would fully support everything that you need, and I would bring your voice to the table 100%.
Yeah, so I've heard from a lot of senior citizens and family members of senior citizens about their concerns of what's going on with the senior population here in terms of security, in terms of housing security. There's a really interesting pilot project that's going on. It's close to Extendicare, but it's not operated by it, and it's a communal living pilot project that's going on for seniors, and it seems to be bearing really good results. So good that we had like a little study done on it. We brought Andrea Horvath over. She loved it. Whatever you think about that. But I'd like to see more projects like that where senior citizens have housing, they come together, they live together, there's shared resources for them in their community, which is very much like a long-term, like a long-term care facility, but it's a little different because it's more accommodating, it's more respectful. And I would like to see more projects like that. I'm happy to talk to you more about it. Thank you.
Yep, my turn. So, yeah, senior housing, that is a big thing for me. There was a place not far from here, actually just up the street, up Clergy, Elizabeth Cottage, that was a communal living house. That is now gone. But communal living is a great idea to help seniors out, and they have to have communities that have are accessible, that one level, but there's got to be, I'm happy to work with on all of that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I'm interested in some future development issues and some of your ideas about where we're going to go. And given that we have such a broad district, or riding as I call it, I'm asking you, what are your thoughts about future development in tourism for the south end and in Bell's Park at the north end? Where do you think things are going to go in the next 10 years?
So for tourism, future development of tourism, just so I understand correctly, in the South End, there are a lot of tourism initiatives that are going on right now. There's been bandying about of a conference center of some sort. I'm not convinced on that. I would need to know more about what's going on there or what the proposal is. In terms of the North End for tourism, I'm not sure. Bell Park would be interesting, but I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the community first to ensure that those that are living there, whether it be in housing or without housing, are safe, and that area is in better shape than it currently is. I'd be excited if there was tourism development in the North End. I grew up in the North End. I love that area, but I think that there are priorities that need to happen first with regards to what we're spending our money on and how we're looking at the area. So.
Thank you, Keith.
Well, tourism, I was just talking to somebody the other day about this. There's all kinds of different tourists that come here, and the fact that we're between Ottawa, Montreal, and Toronto, and Syracuse, which are all within 2 hours or 2.5 hours, that to bring all those people here and to bring them in, must have somewhere to go. I'm all for a conference center, that as long as it's viable. And yeah, I'm all for helping any which way to bring more jobs here with that. So.
So I'm in the School of Business at St. Lawrence College, and I do understand like the basics of economics and how it all works within the city. And even though housing is like the forefront of my platform, I do think that tourism and people coming into the city is still important, because that is also like what helps fund the social programs that we have. But it would be nice if the tourism aspects that we had weren't just for tourists. Like it could be something that people enjoy too. So for example, we don't have a lot of activities that people could do maybe in the winter, and it'd be nice if we expanded like our winter tourism, but we kept it so residents could enjoy it too. And maybe even we have something so it's cheaper for residents. Like residents can enjoy the tourist stuff that we have at a cheaper level, so it's more affordable for us. Money still floating around our economy, and you know, like tourism still is important, and it keeps the city floating, but it's not really the focus of everything. But once you lift everybody up, all of that stuff gets better anyway.
Hi. What role do you think that misinformation plays in municipal politics, and what might you do to combat it?
Wow. Love it. Love it.
Okay, so this one is starting with
Greg.
Keith.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not fair.
Sorry, that was just my side.
Okay. That misinformation. Well, actually, I mean, there was what was the misinformation I did? And actually, it was about the bus tickets from that. There was a lot of misinformation about that and when it happened. Also, and it does affect what happens in this city. I mean, I've seen somebody say the wrong thing, and it just goes away at a whack. And that's so good reporting from Global and the Kingstonness would be great. But yes, you're right that there is a lot of that.
So I live in our district, but like I personally have never been like contacted by our city councilor, and I know that you can always just reach out to them, but that's important to me. Like if I'm representing you guys, like I want to be talking to you guys regularly, and if something is going around the city that's not true, or people are believing in something that's harmful and is like affecting the way that the city works, I would like literally just email you or like put a letter on your door. Like I don't want to be like some distant person from you guys. Like if there was misinformation floating around, like I would call up and be like, hey, just so you know, here it is, here's the truth. I don't know, like I don't have a really political answer. I would just tell you that this is wrong and here's the truth, and I wouldn't hide anything from you because I'm on your side.
So the easiest or the most straightforward way to combat misinformation is to fight it, to take it and face it head on, and call out. I was going to swear, but I'm not going to now. Well, yeah, call it out, and prove what you're saying with facts. And part of the problem with that, and it's a huge, with being a simple solution is a huge challenge, is because it is way easier to lie and to spread misinformation than it is to take the time to refute it. And frankly, it can be exhausting as somebody who has definitely done that in the past and continues to do that. So yes, that is the main way to do it. But going back to what Alexandria was saying, it is with communication. You have to be communicating. If you are the representative, you have to communicate with your constituents. You have to make clear your priorities, and you have to speak truth to power. You have to speak the truth. That's it. Tell the truth.
Hi, I'm on ODSP. I don't really like ODSP, but how would you treat that I've been mistreated on ODSP. I was injured in a car accident, and I have to decide whether I get transportation back and forth to my doctors by cabs or on city bus. The city buses are not safe. I was injured on a bus. And why is it that I have to choose how I get to my doctors?
Okay, thank you for the question. And we're starting with Alexandria this time.
So I hate ODSP. It's legislated poverty, and they give it to you, and then they make you jump through all these hoops to survive, and it's impossible to survive when you're living on ODSP. Because municipal candidates don't get to decide how much ODSP is, like I would fight the provincial government, and I would want that to be improved. But in the meantime, I'd want to be able to implement social programs that are job-based. Like it wouldn't be volunteer-run. People would be getting paid good money for uplifting people in the community. So if you're living on ODSP and all your money is going toward food and housing and transportation, maybe you should be given free food, free housing, and free transportation, so the little bit of money you get can go to actually enjoying the life that you're trying to live.
I'm really sorry to hear that you're going through that, especially with ODSP. I've done taxes for so many ODSP recipients, and to see what they receive and to help try to guide them through the systems as they currently exist federally and provincially. There does need to be, as I mentioned earlier, there's a general accessibility issue that is happening with considerations with the city and social programs. And so for yourself, whether it be taking the taxi or the bus, like there needs to be other options or consideration for accessibility, because there is provincial legislation around accessibility and nobody seems to enforce it ever. And it makes me really angry. So that is something that I think the city can do that can address that concern. But yeah, it has to be accessibility. There has to be that extra level of consideration and consultation, listening to people. Thank you.
ODSP, it does not give you enough. I know that. I have a family member who's on ODSP, and I hear about it all the time. And I'm sympathetic and empathetic to that. I think that the city could do something with, we don't have an access taxi anymore. So someone in a wheelchair can't call a taxi. We have the access bus, which you have to be a member of. But for you, there should be, maybe through the system, something I used with the MS Society. I used taxi chits, and see if there could be a program that we develop that so many per month, but that's it. And they would have to be to the doctor and back. Okay.
Thank you. I think we have time for 2 more questions. So is this a question? And there's a question. Okay, 1, 2, and then we'll hear the closings.
Okay. In regards to accessible transportation, City Council, if you're on council, if you have a mobility aid, and a lot of people with disabilities can use city transit when the weather's good, but require Kingston Access Bus, which is also partially funded through the City of Kingston, in the winter time or in bad weather, raining, whatever, if they have a wheelchair, walker, whatever. However, both passes have to be bought or purchased under the affordability discount through the City of Kingston. City of Kingston gives them I think it's called MAP or something like that, gives them the discount. However, you have to have one transit pass, you pay the partial fee for City of Kingston Transit, City Transit, and you have to have a separate one for Kingston Access Bus. So if you use both modes of transit, you have to have two separate passes and pay two separate fees, which is twice of it. You can't afford it. So your choices are one or the other.
Okay, I'll ask you to phrase the question quickly.
Are you on council, are you willing to take it to council to remedy that people with mobility devices should only have to have one transit pass? So make it all one pass.
Thank you. Okay, so we're starting with Greg this time.
Yes. Very, very simple. Do you mind me asking how much that costs if you're buying both? The same price? Okay. Yeah. Yes. The answer is yes. 100%.
Thank you, Greg.
It's a red tape issue, yes. Simple.
And Alexandria?
Easy, yes, 100%, yeah.
There you go. And our final question is here.
Thank you. It's generally believed that the provincial government is looking to privatize healthcare or further deprivate it. Excuse the pun. And I know as councillors, you don't have that much say on what happens on a provincial level, but what do you look to bring to the table in terms of assisting the mayor's efforts in collaboration with other municipalities in Ontario to address those concerns of how much healthcare is being squeezed and the impact that it has on our healthcare workers and on us as residents of Kingston? Thank you.
Thank you. Keith.
Well, I'm going to have to ask you to repeat the question because I'm
It's
sure.
about healthcare privatization.
Okay, healthcare privatization.
You can say it one more time.
It's okay. I got it now. You're looking to see if I don't want healthcare to be privatized. That's a simple answer from me. I don't want it privatized at all. I like it the way it is, and I do not want it privatized. And whatever influence I can give to the provincial government on that fact is what I'll do. Okay?
I would definitely want to our council to team up with other municipality councils, and just as many of us as we can to try to fight the provincial government to make healthcare better. But at the same time, whatever municipal can do is what I would like to do. So earlier I mentioned getting doctors that already live here to try to be able to be practicing doctors. But also it would be nice if we had even just like a 24/7. What is it? The health center. I can't think of the words right now, but street health. Yes, thank you so much. We don't have a 24/7 street health, and it would be nice if we had one of those. It would also be nice if we had things like I know this isn't exactly health related, but like warming centers and more clinics and stuff like that. So if we introduced what the municipal can control, if we introduced more of these, this would alleviate what the hospitals are dealing with, and then that would also make it better for everybody trying to deal with the healthcare system that is absolutely failing us.
Thank you, Alexandria. And finally, Greg.
So if the mayor is, well, I would hope the mayor would be fighting the government on healthcare funding, A, because it's the right thing to do, and B, because every time the provincial government claws back funding, that's more money that the city has to spend in terms of providing services. So both of those are very important. And the AMO, that's the Council of Municipalities, where all the mayors meet at probably a very fancy table. They need to be putting pressure on the provincial government to provide those services. There are additional stopgap measures that the city can provide, and as we saw, I'm seeing the yellow card. But yes, I would support the mayor in that initiative, and councillors need to get involved too. The council, like as Alexandria said, I feel like I'm saying that a lot, Alexandria, I'm sorry. But councillors can confer with other councillors in different municipalities and apply pressure to their mayors in a collective. That would be fantastic. So that would be something that I'd be very interested in supporting. And yeah.
Okay, I think we should give them a clap because that was a that was a rapid fire round. 1 minute is not a lot of time, I realize, watching you, so thanks for those answers. Okay, so we are on to the last item on the agenda, the closing comments. And we'll reverse the order this time, and we'll go down the table this way. We'll start with Greg, Alexandria, and finally Keith. You have 2 minutes each.
Okay, that's fabulous. So I want to thank everybody for attending, for asking questions, and just coming and participating in this democratic process. It is fun, it is messy, it is exciting, and this has been an amazing evening. So I want to thank everybody for that. Just to repeat, my name is Gregory Ridge. I'm running for City Council for Kingstown. My 4 strategic priorities are increasing the municipal stock of affordable housing, increasing funding for social services and supportive housing, looking at protecting our environment, looking at sustainability policies and how we can improve them, and also looking at the arts and support for artists. So the main priority is housing. That's the main theme that we've heard tonight, and there's a lot of agreement at this table, which I'm very happy to hear. What I've been doing is I've been writing this all down. Everything that everybody's been saying, it may look like the notes of a serial killer, but I've been hearing what you've had to say, all your questions, all my points, all the points of my fellow contestants, candidates. We still haven't determined that. We'll figure it out later. But yeah, and this has been listening, and that's what I want to do. I want to be your representative. I want to help you. I want to help this community, and I want to help Kingston. So that's why I'm running. I want to thank everybody again, and Alexandria and Keith, and I hope that you all have a great evening. Thank you again.
Alexandria.
So again, I'm Alexandria Liu. Although I haven't shared my entire platform here, you can find my platform if you visit tenantsunite.ca, and then at the top there's a little link about the municipal election. Just click on there, you'll see our platform. We care about housing, childcare, people being able to afford food, people getting free transit when they can't afford it. Generally just making your cost of living lower. That's what we care about. That's what your government should care about. And I am running because I see so many people getting left behind. I see people making decisions for us that have nothing to lose anyway. And I'm tired of it. I've lived here long enough to see that nothing has really been changing in the way that it should be, and I'm ready for that to happen. So I really hope that you all vote for me. If you don't, I'm still gonna like you, and and I'm still gonna be here afterwards. I saw some hands that didn't get answered, so if you have any questions for me, I'll stay here for a little bit longer.
And finally, Keith.
Well, thanks to everyone for being here. I know there's a lot of stuff goes on in this town tonight, and I thank my competitors here for a good evening and great back and forth. I'm Keith Bilo. I'm here to serve you to make Kingstown what it should be, which takes in whatever happens in this city. It takes it all in, and that I want the neighborhood to grow, but I want it to grow responsibly, and I want it to grow safely. That I know there's a lot of talk about safety in this neighborhood, and I want it all to be safe, and I want it to be economical, and I want it to be the spot that everybody wants to live, because it is a great spot to be here. So that's who I am, and thanks for coming.
And thanks to you for coming and asking questions and spending your evening here when you could have been seeing Colin James or something like that. Thank you once again to the candidates.